Tonight, we travel back to Middle-earth. This is a world of wide open skies and ancient mountains, of rivers that have run for thousands of years through valleys no road has ever crossed. It is a world where trees remember things that men have long forgotten, where the wind carries whispers between distant lands, and where the stars at night seem closer and older than anything we know. But before that, my name's Murphy, and I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time of day it is for you. If this brings you calm, don't forget to subscribe. There are so many more peaceful nights ahead. We are picking up a story already in motion. A great journey has already begun. A fellowship of 9 travelers set out together some time ago. A wizard, a ranger, an elf, a dwarf, 2 men, and 4 hobbits, bound by a single purpose. They were carrying something very small and very dangerous. A ring. Not just any ring, but the One Ring. A thing of ancient power, forged long ago in the fires of a dark mountain. And they were trying to bring it to that very mountain, to destroy it forever, before the darkness that made it could take over the world. But the fellowship did not stay together. Things happened. Old enemies found them. Old wounds opened. And somewhere along the way, each of them was pulled in a different direction by the weight of what they were carrying. Not just the ring, but the burden of the choices ahead. Now they are scattered. And this is where our story begins tonight. We begin in darkness and in memory. Frodo Baggins is asleep, though it is not a peaceful sleep. He is a hobbit, small and gentle by nature, with soft curly hair and bare feet that are too large for his frame. He comes from a quiet place called the Shire, where the biggest concerns in life are the size of one's vegetable garden and whether the second breakfast will be served on time. But Frodo is far from the Shire now. He has been far from it for a long time. In his dream, he is back in a place called Moria. It is deep underground, a vast network of tunnels and halls carved out by dwarves long ago, now empty and cold. And he is watching something he has already witnessed, something he cannot stop watching, no matter how many times sleep brings him back to it. He is watching Gandalf fall. Gandalf the Grey was their wizard, their guide. He was old in the way that mountains are old. Not fragile, but permanent. He had a grey robe and a grey beard and a grey hat, and a staff that glowed with a soft light when the world around him was dark. He laughed easily and smoked his pipe on quiet evenings and spoke in riddles that only made sense later. Frodo loved him the way a child loves someone who always knows what to do. But in the halls of Moria, deep beneath the earth, they had been chased by something ancient and terrible. A creature of shadow and fire, a Balrog. And Gandalf had turned to face it at a narrow stone bridge over a vast dark pit, while the others ran ahead. He stood there on that bridge with his staff held high and his voice steady, and he told the creature that it could not pass. And for a moment, it seemed like he was right. But then the bridge cracked, and the Balrog fell into the darkness below, and it took Gandalf with it. His fingers slipped from the edge of the stone. His eyes looked up for just a moment, and then he was gone. Frodo wakes up. He lies still for a few seconds, just breathing. The sky above him is soft grey with the earliest edge of morning. The air is cool and smells of stone and dried grass. He blinks slowly, and the dream fades, and the world comes back. He is not in Moria. He is somewhere out in the open, on a rocky ground, with the wide sky above him. And Gandalf is gone. That part is still true. He sits up quietly and looks around. Sam Gamgee is already awake. Sam is Frodo's closest friend, a stout and warm-hearted hobbit who came on this journey because he could not bear the thought of Frodo going alone. Sam is practical, where Frodo is dreamy, cheerful, where Frodo is heavy with thought, steady where Frodo sometimes seems on the edge of crumbling. He has big hands from years of gardening, and a round face that is almost always kind. He does not think of himself as brave. He thinks of himself as helpful, and in his mind, being helpful to Frodo is the most important thing there is. Sam has been watching over Frodo through the night, as he often does. The two of them have been traveling alone for days now, since the Fellowship broke apart. They crossed a wide river. They left the others behind. They made a choice. Or rather, Frodo made a choice, and Sam refused to let him make it alone. They are heading east, toward Mordor, toward the dark mountain at the center of all this trouble, where the ring was made and where it must be destroyed. The land around them is not welcoming. It is rough and broken, full of sharp rocks and loose stone, with sparse patches of wiry grass between them. The sky is big and pale. There are no trees for shade, no streams for easy water, no roads, no signs that any other living thing has passed this way in a long time. But Frodo and Sam keep walking. They move quietly, mostly. Sam sometimes talks about the Shire, about what food he wishes he had, about small things he notices. And Frodo listens, and sometimes answers, and sometimes just walks with his hand near his chest, where the ring hangs on its chain. He touches it often, without meaning to. The ring has a weight that goes beyond what a small golden circle should weigh. It pulls at him, not physically, but in some other way that is harder to explain. The hills around them rise and fall in slow, tired waves. The stone is grey and brown. The sky holds the light of a sun that is still low and still distant. Frodo and Sam pick their way through the rocks, one careful step at a time. They are not alone. Neither of them has noticed yet, but something has been following them for days, slipping between the rocks, keeping to the shadows, moving with a strange, boneless kind of ease, like water finding the low places in a riverbed. His name is Gollum. He was a hobbit once, long ago, or something like a hobbit. A small, river-dwelling creature who found a ring in a dark riverbed centuries past and kept it. Kept it and kept it and kept it, until the keeping of it changed him. The ring was not meant for creatures like him, but it worked on him anyway, slowly, the way water works on stone. It drew out whatever was small and frightened and grasping inside him, and made those things enormous. It thinned him down to almost nothing. He is pale and skeletal now, with wide eyes that catch light in the dark, and long fingers that grip and release and grip again without meaning to. He lost the ring. A hobbit found it. A different hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, Frodo's uncle, a long time ago. And now the ring has passed to Frodo, and Gollum has been following the ring ever since. He calls it his precious. It is the center of everything for him. The thought of it pulls him forward, the way a thread pulls a needle. He moves through the rocky landscape with a kind of animal patience. He does not need to rush. He knows how to wait. He crouches low behind boulders and watches the two hobbits below with those huge pale eyes, and he does not make a sound. Not yet. Night comes slowly to this part of the world, the sky moving through orange and then purple and then a deep blue that holds the last light at its edges for a long time. Frodo and Sam make a rough camp between two large rocks where they are out of the wind. Sam opens their pack and looks carefully at what they have left. Not much. They are trying to stretch what little food they brought, and the stretching is getting harder. They eat quietly. Sam worries about Frodo, though he tries not to show it too plainly. Frodo has grown quieter over the past few days, and sometimes Sam catches him looking at nothing. Not the hills, not the sky, but something inward. Somewhere Sam cannot reach. Later, when the stars are out and the darkness is full and still, Sam wakes to a sound. It is very faint, but Sam's ears are sharper than people give him credit for. He lies still for a moment, just listening. There it is again. A soft scrape, a shifting of weight on loose stone. Something close. He wakes Frodo carefully, and together they wait in the dark. And then Gollum comes over the rocks above them, moving like a large spider, fingers and toes finding the cracks in the stone as naturally as a cat finds the high places in a room. He does not see that they are awake. He is reaching for the pack, reaching for what might be inside it, reaching for something that his long hunger has told him is near. But Frodo and Sam are ready. Sam grabs him first, and there is a brief, scrambling struggle. Gollum is surprisingly strong for something that looks so hollow, and he hisses and twists and claws, but Sam holds on, and then they have him, and Gollum is very still, crouched between them, looking up with those great pale eyes. He is frightened. He is also angry. But mostly, in that moment, he looks like what he is, something that has been alone for a very long time. Frodo looks at Gollum for a long while. He has heard of this creature. Bilbo told stories. The ring itself seems to recognize Gollum in some way Frodo can feel but not explain. There is something almost familiar in those eyes, something that Frodo does not want to think about too carefully. Sam wants to tie him up and leave him, or send him away, or do something practical. He does not trust Gollum at all. His instincts are clear and loud on the subject. But Frodo is thinking about something else. He is thinking about the fact that they do not know the way. Not really. The road to Mordor is not a road in any normal sense. It is a guess and a hope, and a direction. Gollum, on the other hand, has been there. He knows things about the land around Mordor that no map they could find would show. He knows small paths, hidden ways, things that creatures of the dark have learned over long years. Frodo makes an offer. He tells Gollum that they will not hurt him, that they will let him go free if he agrees to help them, to guide them. Gollum is suspicious. Everything about him is suspicious. His eyes, his posture, the way he holds himself like something expecting a blow. But the offer of not being hurt is a powerful thing when you have been hurt so often. He agrees. He swears by his precious, by the ring itself, that he will serve the ring-bearer, that he will guide them to Mordor. And so the three of them settle in for the rest of the night, a strange and unlikely company. A gentle hobbit carrying the weight of the world on a chain around his neck, his loyal friend who would rather be home tending a garden, and a wretched, hollow creature who loves the ring more than anything else in the world, and has no idea what he will do once they get there. Days pass in their quiet, grinding way. Gollum leads. He moves on all fours more often than not, sniffing at the ground and the air, checking directions with a certainty that cannot be faked. He knows this land. He takes them through gullies and around exposed ridgelines, and through the kinds of paths that a person walking alone would never think to find. He is not exactly pleasant company, he mutters to himself. He complains about the sun, which he hates, pulling his thin body away from the light when he can, preferring the shadows and the cool underside of stones. He refuses the food Sam offers and makes faces at it. He and Sam do not get along, and they do not pretend to. There is a low friction between them, a constant, quiet tension that runs just beneath the surface of every hour they spend together. But he keeps leading them forward, and forward is the only direction that matters. The land changes gradually. The rocky hills give way to something flatter, something lower. The ground becomes soft and then softer, and the smell changes. It becomes wet and green and a little dark, the way water smells when it has been still for a long time. The grass here is long and pale, and it bends in the wind with a slow, sleepy motion. They have reached the dead marshes. It is a vast, flat wetland that stretches in every direction, broken by pools of dark water and tangled reeds and occasional stretches of soft mud. The sky above it is grey and still, and sound seems muffled here, as though the marshes absorb it. There are no birds, no insects, just the slow, wet silence of standing water and old earth. Gollum moves carefully through it, stepping only where the ground is solid enough to hold them, testing each patch of earth before trusting it. Frodo and Sam follow close behind, watching where he puts his feet and trying to put their feet in the same places. The pools are strange. At first, they just look like dark water, stagnant and flat, the kind of water that does not move and doesn't go anywhere. But when you look at them for a moment in the fading light, something else becomes visible. Shapes beneath the surface. Pale shapes, dim and still. Faces. Frodo stops walking and looks down into one of the pools, and he sees them. Long, dead faces, preserved somehow in the water, eyes closed, features still. Men, elves, orcs. All of them together. All of them from some old war fought here so long ago that the living world has grown over the graves. The marshes rose and covered them, and now they lie beneath the water, like memories that will not disappear. There is a soft light around them, a cold, pale light that has no warmth in it. And the faces do not move. They just float there, in the still water, looking at nothing. Frodo stands at the edge of the pool and feels pulled toward them, not violently, not with a sudden tug, but slowly, the way tiredness pulls you toward a bed. He leans forward without meaning to. The water is very still. The faces below are very quiet. Sam catches his arm, and Gollum, ahead of them, hisses and warns them not to follow the lights. He knows about those pale lights. He calls them candles of the corpses. He says they lead you in, but once you are in, the dead will keep you. He sounds frightened when he says it, and for once, that frightened voice is the most honest thing about him. Frodo pulls back from the edge. He breathes. He looks at Sam, and Sam nods, and they keep walking. It takes a long time to cross the dead marshes. The path is slow and careful, never straight, always winding around the places where the ground goes soft and the water is close. Gollum moves with absolute confidence through it, and there is something almost reassuring about that, even if the confidence belongs to something you do not entirely trust. They travel mostly in the grey hours of early morning and late evening, when the light is low and the sun is not too punishing for Gollum. During the middle of the day they rest under what cover they can find, which is not much. A clump of reeds, a slight rise in the ground. They sleep in shifts, and the marshes are quiet around them. The nights out here are very dark. There is no moon some evenings, and the clouds keep the stars hidden, and the pale light from the pools is the only thing that breaks the darkness. It is eerie in the way that empty places are always eerie. Not because something is there, but because you become very aware of everything that isn't. Sam makes the best of it. He talks to Frodo about small things when Frodo seems to need it. He worries quietly about the water in their bottles and the count of their remaining food. He watches Gollum with steady, unimpressed eyes. And eventually, the ground starts to firm up again. The pools become fewer, the reeds thin out. The smell changes from the wet darkness of standing water to something cleaner, something that moves. They are through. On the far side of the marshes, the land opens up again, and the sky is wide and still, and for a moment there is almost something peaceful about being on solid ground. But Frodo is tired in a way that sleep does not fix. The ring hangs on its chain around his neck, and it has been there for so long now that he notices it less as a physical weight and more as a pressure. A low, constant pressure on his thoughts, on the way he sees things, on the way time feels as it passes. It is as though the world has a slight grey film over it, and the ring is the source of the film. He has seen things that scared him, the faces in the water, the darkness in Moria, the moments when he could feel the ring almost thinking, almost wanting. There is something alive about it in a way that objects should not be alive, and that aliveness reaches toward him sometimes, trying to get in. He keeps walking. He does not say much about this to Sam, because Sam already worries enough, and there is nothing Sam could do anyway. He just keeps the ring close against his chest, and puts one foot in front of the other, and trusts that putting feet in front of each other, over and over, will eventually get them somewhere. Sam watches him. Sam always watches him. And then, after all the days and all the miles and all the careful steps through the marshes, they see it. Mordor. Or rather, the entrance to it. The land ahead has been growing darker for a while, the sky thickening with something that is not quite cloud but not quite clear. A heavy brownish light that sits over the eastern horizon and makes everything underneath it look sickly. The ground has become more barren, more cracked, the color of old ash. And then the mountains appear. Huge, jagged, dark mountains that rise in a great wall across the entire horizon, filling it from edge to edge. There is no gentleness in these mountains. They are not the kind of mountains that inspire awe for their beauty. They are the kind that make you feel small in a frightening way. Not the good kind of small that comes from standing at the edge of the sea, but the kind that feels like being erased. In the middle of that wall, where two arms of the mountain range meet, there is a great gate. The Black Gate. It is enormous. Two huge iron doors set into the stone of the mountain, flanked by towers. And in front of the towers there are watchtowers. And in front of the watchtowers there are more walls. And the whole thing is designed not just to keep things out, but to see them coming from miles away. There are soldiers on those walls, orcs, moving in the grey-brown light. The gate is closed, but even from this distance it radiates something, a sense of weight, of finality, of something that does not want to be passed. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum crouch behind a ridge of rock and look at it. It is not an inviting sight. They watch for a while, and the watching is enough to tell them what they need to know. The gate is guarded constantly. There is no gap, no blind spot, no hour of the night when the watchers look away. Wagon trains of supplies move in and out through it, and each one is checked and counted. The walls are too high to climb. The ground in front of them is too open to cross without being seen. Even at night, there are lights on the towers, and the soldiers below them have sharp eyes. Sam says, quietly, what they are both thinking, that this is not the way in. Frodo already knows it. He has known it since he first saw the gate, he thinks. Part of him has been hoping that something would be different from what he feared, that the road would turn out to be easier than it looked. But it isn't. It almost never is. He turns to Gollum. Gollum has been crouching behind the rocks with them, his eyes going back and forth between the gate and Frodo, and now he does something unexpected. He says he knows another way. There is a path, he says, not the gate, a different way in. Around the southern side of the mountains, through a place he knows. He calls it a secret stair. He says he has used it himself, long ago, when he was smaller and more careful. He says there are no soldiers on it, that most creatures who know about it avoid it. Sam does not believe him. Sam's face makes this very clear without him having to say much. There is something in Gollum's manner when he talks about this other path. A brightness in his eyes that is just a little too eager, a quickness in his voice that feels like something being hidden. And Sam notices all of it. But Frodo looks at the gate again, and he looks at the mountains, and he thinks about the fact that the gate cannot be passed. He thinks about what it means if there is no other way. He decides to trust Gollum, not fully, not without watching him, but enough to follow. And so the three of them turn away from the Black Gate, and Gollum leads them south, along the base of the mountains, toward whatever secret path he has promised. Far to the west, in a different part of the world entirely, 3 other members of the Old Fellowship are running. Aragorn is tall and lean, with dark hair and a worn, weathered look that comes from years of living outdoors and never quite belonging anywhere. He is a ranger by habit, a wanderer by choice, a king by birth, though he has never told many people that last part. He is not the sort of man who makes speeches about who he is. He just does what needs to be done and moves on. With him are Legolas and Gimli, an elf and a dwarf, 2 kinds of people who have spent most of their shared history not getting along, but who have somehow, over the course of this journey, become something like friends. Legolas is light on his feet and pale-haired and quietly confident in the way that creatures who have lived for centuries sometimes are. Gimli is broad and bearded and opinionated and warm in the way that people who are proud of what they are often are. They are following a trail. Not long before this, just a day or so, the Fellowship was attacked. The orcs came in force, and in the chaos, 2 of the hobbits were taken, Merry and Pippin. The 2 youngest, the 2 silliest, the 2 who had joined the whole adventure almost by accident, were scooped up by the orc army and carried away. Aragorn does not have to think long about what to do. He says they are going after them. The orc band left a trail that is not hard to read if you know how to look. Aragorn knows how. He can read ground the way most people read words. The pressed grass, the disturbed earth, the marks of heavy feet running in a hurry. He crouches and examines things briefly, and then stands and moves, quick and certain. They run. Not a desperate, panicked run, but the long, steady, loping run of people who have done this before, who know how to pace themselves over distance. Aragorn runs with his eyes mostly on the ground. Legolas runs with his eyes on the horizon. Gimli runs with the slightly breathless determination of someone who is not built for running, but is doing it anyway, and doing it well. The plain they cross is wide and brown, the grass dry and short, the sky above them blue and very large. There is almost no cover. In every direction, the land stretches flat and open, which means they can see for miles, and anything watching from a height could see them just as easily. They follow the trail east. A day passes, then another. They do not stop, not really. They slow sometimes to check the trail, to drink from a water source, to catch their breath. But they do not make camp in the proper sense. They eat while walking. They rest when they have to, and then keep going. Gimli, at one point, says something like, "Have they lost the trail? Have the orcs gone too far ahead?" And Aragorn just shakes his head and keeps running. The nights on this plain are cold and very clear, the stars hanging thick and bright in the sky above them, the ground silver in the starlight. They do not light a fire. They do not need to. They are moving and moving and moving. There is something almost meditative about a long run like this. Not comfortable, but focused. The whole world narrowed down to the ground in front of your feet, and the rhythm of your own breathing. Aragorn seems to move into a kind of calm as the miles go on. His face is still, and his eyes are steady, and he just keeps going. Legolas, at some point, pauses and looks at the ground and then at the horizon. He says he can see riders in the distance, far off across the plain, men on horses perhaps, moving fast. They note this and keep running. On the third day, the trail leads them somewhere. They slow as the ground changes beneath their feet. More disturbed, more churned up, the marks of many feet, and not just the running prints they have been following. There is ash here, dark patches on the grass, the smell of old smoke. Something happened here, something large. Aragorn reads the ground carefully, moving slowly, crouching often. He finds orc prints, many of them all going the same direction. He finds the marks of horse hooves. Many horses, riding hard, riding in circles and then in lines. He finds scraps of things, broken equipment, the kind of debris a battle leaves behind. He finds the remains of a fire. He looks around at all of it for a long time, putting it together the way you put together a story from scattered pages. The orc camp, what is left of it, is ahead of them in the long grass. Or rather, what was the orc camp? Because whoever was on those horses found it before Aragorn's group did. The riders, men of Rohan, as it turns out, intercepted the orc band and killed them. All of them, or very nearly. The camp is still and quiet now, nothing moving. The orcs defeated, their fires dead. It is a grey, still scene in the morning light. Aragorn looks at it and feels his heart sink, just a little. If the orcs were all killed here, and Merry and Pippin were with the orcs, then what happened to the hobbits? He searches the ground and the edges of the camp and finds no small hobbit-sized footprints leading back out the way they came. He finds tracks leading in a different direction. Towards the forest, the dark, enormous, ancient forest that stands at the edge of this plain like a wall of old wood. Fangorn. He studies the tracks more carefully. Two pairs, small and close-set, moving fast, running, not being dragged. Merry and Pippin got away. They ran for the forest. For a moment, Aragorn almost allows himself to be relieved. And they did get away. In the hours before Aragorn found the camp, while the battle was still happening around them, Merry and Pippin slipped out from beneath the chaos with the quick, low instincts of small creatures who know how to disappear when large things are happening above them. They ran, through the long grass, keeping low, keeping fast. Behind them the noise of battle faded, and the sound of the horses and the shouting grew distant, and then quieter, and then stopped. Ahead of them the forest grew larger and larger, until they were running directly into it, through the first line of trees and then deeper, into the shadows between the great trunks. They stopped when they could go no further without stopping. They leaned against the roots of an enormous tree and breathed hard and looked at each other. They were alive. Merry and Pippin are the youngest of the hobbits, and in many ways they are still young, even by hobbit standards. They like good food and good company, and a joke when one presents itself, and they are not entirely sure, even now, of the full weight of what they have gotten themselves into. But they have been through enough in the past weeks to have grown in some ways, quietly and without quite noticing it. They are in Fangorn now, and Fangorn is old, older than anything they have words for. The trees are enormous and close together, and the light comes down through the canopy in long, slow shafts that make the whole forest feel like something underwater. Everything here is very still, but not the stillness of emptiness, more like the stillness of things that are watching. Merry and Pippin look around them and feel it. That sense of being watched, not with malice, but with a deep and patient attention. Something in this forest is paying attention to them. They had spent the worst of it crouched in the grass, trying to make themselves as small as possible, which hobbits are naturally fairly good at. The battle around them had been loud and very close, and both of them had kept their eyes mostly on the ground and tried not to think too hard about what was happening just over their heads. But they had waited, and they had stayed still, and eventually the opening they needed appeared. A gap in the confusion, and they had taken it. By the time they were in the trees, they were both tired and hungry, and a little shaky in the way you get when a long fear finally stops. Pippin found a mushroom at the base of one of the trees and ate it before Merry could tell him whether that was a good idea. It seemed to be fine. They rested for a while against the tree, listening to the forest settle around them. It settled slowly. The next morning, or what passes for morning, inside Fangorn, where the light is always grey and thick and comes from no clear direction, they decided to go deeper in. Going back was not really an option. The plain outside was still. They did not know if more orcs were coming, and something about the forest felt, if not safe exactly, then at least not threatening. Not to them. Not to small, wandering things who meant no harm. They walked between the roots of the enormous trees, which sometimes rose as high as their shoulders, great woody buttresses that curved away from the trunks in all directions. The ground between them was soft and covered with deep moss, a dark, deep green that gave slightly under each step, as though the forest floor were breathing. The trees themselves were old beyond imagining, not old in the way that old buildings are old, with the wear and crumbling that time brings. Old in the way that mountains are old, still fully present, fully alive, still in possession of everything they had ever been. Their trunks were vast, and their bark was rough and deeply furrowed. And if you looked at the patterns in the bark for long enough, they started to look like faces. Pippin said something like, "This place makes him feel like a hobbit." Merry said he always was a hobbit. Pippin said he knew that. He just meant small, like he has not felt that way for a while, and that it is actually kind of nice. They did not find Treebeard. He found them. They were sitting at the base of one of the great trees, talking quietly and trying to figure out which direction was east, when the tree above them moved. Not the way trees move in wind, not the slow, passive swaying of branches. This was a purposeful movement, a deep, heavy shifting, like something rearranging itself after sitting still for a very long time. Then a creaking sound, very slow, very low. Then another, and then the tree opened its eyes. It was not a tree, or rather it was a tree, but it was also much more than a tree. It was an ent. Treebeard is the oldest of the ents, and the ents are the shepherds of the forest beings who are themselves something like trees, who grow slowly and speak slowly and think slowly, but who, when roused, carry a strength that is very old and very deep. He is enormous, far taller than any man, with a great trunk-like body and long branch-like arms, and a face that has the texture and color of old bark, with deep eyes, the color of still water. He looks down at Merry and Pippin with those slow, deep eyes, and considers them for a long moment. He has never seen anything quite like them. He goes through a long, careful mental list of all the creatures he knows, checking them off one by one, and comes up short. They are small and soft and look up at him with the particular kind of bravery that comes from being a little too tired to be properly afraid. He calls them halflings, finally. He has heard of halflings in the old tales. He says they are not orcs, at least. Treebeard carries them. He holds them in the crook of his enormous arms the way a person might carry two cats, and he walks through the forest with a steady, heavy tread, each step placed with great care on the soft ground. He talks as he walks, or rather, he begins talking, which is different from actually finishing things quickly. Ents, Merry and Pippin learn, do not rush words. Treebeard says something, and then pauses, and then says the next part, and each pause is long enough that they begin to wonder if he has forgotten what he was saying. But he hasn't. He is just giving the words time to be the right ones. He asks them where they have come from, and where they are going, and how they came to be in Fangorn. They tell him. They tell him about the Fellowship, about the Ring, about Saruman, the wizard in the tower of Isengard, not far from the forest's edge, who has been cutting down the trees for firewood and for the fires of his forges, who has been destroying the forest that Treebeard and the other Ents have tended for ages beyond count. Treebeard listens. He does not rush. He asks questions at the right moments, in his slow, deliberate way. And as the hobbits talk, something changes in his deep eyes. Something that has been still for a long time begins to move. Later, Treebeard takes them to a place deeper in the forest where other Ents have gathered. Tall, ancient, tree-like beings, each one different, each one slow and vast and full of the patience that comes from having lived for centuries. They look like different kinds of trees in the way their shapes are formed, some with the character of oak in their limbs, some with the smoothness of beech, some with the dark and furrowed bark of ash. The gathering is quiet and slow. Ents greet each other in long, careful exchanges that take a great deal of time to say very little, by hobbit standards. But there is a warmth to it, an affection that runs beneath the slowness, the way deep water runs quiet. Merry and Pippin watch from Treebeard's arms, very small in the middle of all this ancient company. Pippin asks if the Ents are going to do anything about Saruman, about the trees being cut down, about the war that is spreading across the lands around them. Treebeard does not answer right away. The question requires consideration. Treebeard walks with them through different parts of the forest over the course of the day, showing them things as they pass. A grove where the trees are so old they have grown into each other, their roots intertwined so deeply that they are practically one thing. A pool where the water has been still for so many centuries, that the reflection in it shows the sky above as clearly as a mirror. Places where the trees are very tall, and the canopy is so thick that the light below is always green and always cool. It is beautiful in a way that is entirely unhurried. Nothing in Fangorn seems to be in any particular rush. The forest operates on a scale of time that makes seasons feel like moments. Merry and Pippin drink from a stream that Treebeard points them to. The water is cold and clear and has a taste they cannot identify, something that makes them feel slightly larger afterward. Treebeard says it is just water, but there is a quality to everything in this forest that suggests it is more than it appears. They rest in a hollow in the roots of a vast tree, and the sounds of the forest at night, which are mostly not sounds, but a deep, low presence, the feeling of many large, slow-breathing things close by, are somehow not frightening. They are comfortable in a strange way, like sleeping in a very old house where the walls know how to hold the warmth. In the morning, Merry asks the question more directly. He says, "Saruman is destroying the forest. The war is getting bigger. The Ents are the largest and oldest things in this part of the world. Will they help? Not just for the Fellowship's sake, or for the sake of the Ring or Mordor, or any of the large, complicated reasons that the rest of the world is at war over, but for themselves, for the forest." Treebeard listens to this very carefully. He is quiet for a long time, the kind of quiet that fills up space. Then he says that the Ents have not gone to war in a very long time, that Ents do not make hasty decisions, that they will have to discuss it. Treebeard walks to the edge of the forest, where the trees begin to thin. He looks out toward Isengard, which is not far, just visible through the last of the trees, the smoke from Saruman's fires rising in a dark column against the sky. He stands very still for a long time. He can see what Saruman has done to the land around Isengard. The trees that were there before, some of them very old, some of them known to Treebeard by name, the way a shepherd knows his flock, are gone. Stumps in the raw earth, ash and splinters where living things once stood. The ground is torn up and dark with use, and the whole area around the tower is loud with the sounds of metal and fire and industry. Treebeard looks at this for a long time without speaking. When he turns back, something has settled in his face. The long consideration is over, or nearly. The deep eyes are clear and still and very decided. The Ents gather. It is a slow gathering. Ents do not rush anywhere, and they come from all parts of the great forest, moving between the trees with their long, steady steps, their voices low and deep as they find each other. When they are all assembled, the sound of them together is something like a forest in wind, a low chorus of wood and breath, and deep, slow thought. Merry and Pippin sit in Treebeard's arms and watch the council begin. It is not a quick thing. The Ents speak in their own language first. Entish, which sounds like the slow music of trees in a long storm, and then sometimes in the common tongue, for the sake of their guests. The question before the council is simple, even if the answer is not. Saruman has been destroying the forest. The war is coming closer. Do the Ents go to war? Do they leave the forest and march on Isengard? The discussion is long and careful, and entirely without hurry. But it moves in one direction, slowly and certainly, like a river finding the sea. West of Fangorn, in a land of wide green plains and cold rivers, and long ridges of grey stone, there is a kingdom called Rohan. Its people are riders. They breed horses and love them, and know them the way other peoples know the sea or the mountains. And they are fierce in battle, in the way of people who have always lived close to the edge of something dangerous. Their king is Theoden. He is an old man, white-haired and broad-shouldered, with the look of someone who was once very strong and is now being slowly emptied of everything that made him so. He sits in his hall in the capital city of Edoras, which stands on a hill in the middle of the plains, surrounded by wooden walls and a long roof of gold thatch. The hall is full of carved wood and old banners and the history of a proud people. But the king himself barely seems to see any of it. He sits in his throne and he stares at nothing, and his voice, when he speaks, is thin and uncertain. He has been this way for some time. And the reason he has been this way is close by. A man called Grimmer, who also goes by the name Worm-tongue. He is pale and smooth-mannered, and always near the king, always at his elbow, always speaking quietly into the old man's ear. Saruman, far off in his tower, has sent his influence through Grimmer like a thread through a needle. Every day, the counsel Grimmer whispers to the king is another thread woven, another small decision turned a little wrong, another room in the king's mind closed off and darkened. The kingdom suffers. The people of Rohan can see what is happening to their king, but they do not know what to do about it. Theoden's niece, Eowyn, tall and grey-eyed, and very still in the way that people are still when they are holding a great deal of emotion very tightly inside, watches her uncle's deterioration and feels something cold growing in her chest about it. And his nephew, Eomer, who commands part of the king's army, has been fighting the orcs that have been crossing into Rohan from the direction of Isengard. He has been fighting them and winning, but the king, under Grimmer's counsel, has stripped him of his command and banished him for acting without orders. It makes no sense as a military decision. It makes perfect sense as a way to leave Rohan weaker and more alone. Gandalf the White rides to Edoras. He is not grey anymore. That is the first thing. And it is significant. He is all in white, a different shade entirely, and there is a clarity to him, a brightness that his grey self did not have. He rides Shadowfax, the greatest horse in Rohan, who responds to no ordinary rider, who moves like wind across the plains. The two of them arrive at the gates of Edoras in the morning, with the sun behind them. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride with him. The gates of Edoras are guarded, and the guards are not immediately welcoming. Grimmer's influence extends to them, but Gandalf is not the sort of person who can be easily turned away from a gate, and eventually they pass through and climb the long path up to Theoden's hall at the top of the hill. The hall inside is dim and smells of old wood and cold hearths. Theoden sits in the shadows, and Grimmer is beside him. And around the edges of the hall, the king's thanes stand in the firelight and watch what is about to happen. Grimmer speaks first, as he always does. Smooth words, careful words, the kind that have the shape of good counsel and the substance of rot. Gandalf does not engage with the words. He moves towards the king directly, with the kind of calm certainty that belongs to someone who knows exactly what they are doing and why. What follows is difficult to describe simply. It is not a fight in any physical sense. It is more like a clearing. A long, stubborn spell being pulled apart. A darkness being brought out into the light and seen for what it is. Gandalf raises his staff. His voice changes. Deeper and cleaner. Something beneath the words that the words are riding on. Theoden resists at first, the way people resist waking from a bad dream. half of him wanting to stay in the familiar darkness, half of him being pulled toward air and light. But Gandalf is patient, and the darkness, when exposed, does not have the strength it seemed to have in the shadows. Slowly, the old king comes back to himself. It is like watching something frozen begin to thaw. His shoulders come up, his spine straightens, his eyes, which were clouded and dim, clear slowly, taking the room back in. He reaches up and touches his own face, as though checking that it is still there. He looks at his hands, the hands of an old man, but his hands. He stands. He looks at Grima, and Grima's smooth manner, stripped of its usefulness, crumbles at the edges. The first thing Theoden does is ask about his son. His son is Theodred, and Theodred has been leading the riders in battle while his father sat in the shadows. But the battles have not gone well, and the news is not good. Theodred is dead. He was killed in a fight at a ford across the river Isen, a battle that should not have been as hard as it was. Theoden goes to where his son was laid. He stands over the body of his son for a long moment, and the grief that comes over him is old-fashioned in its completeness. No performance, no breaking down, just the full, silent weight of it. He has missed the death of his son while sitting in a darkened hall, hearing only what Grima chose to tell him. He has missed it completely. He says quietly that no father should have to bury his son. Gandalf is beside him and does not rush him. The others wait at a respectful distance. Outside, the wind comes off the plain and moves through the long grass around Edoras, and the sky is wide and pale and old. With himself returned, Theoden wastes no time in setting things right. He sends for Eomer. His nephew, banished and stripped of his command at Grima's urging, returns to Edoras with the riders who follow him, and he comes back into his uncle's presence in the hall of Meduseld, and they face each other. The old man who was not himself for a long time, and the young man who kept fighting anyway. Eomer is tall and gold-haired, broad and direct in the way of someone who was raised to command, and has spent enough years doing it, that command is now simply how he carries himself. He does not say much when he walks into the hall. He does not have to. Theoden gives him back his sword, and the look between them is enough. Éowyn is still there. She has been in Edoras through all of it. The slow decline of her uncle, the absence of her cousin Theodred, the daily grinding presence of Grima, who watches her with an attention she finds deeply unpleasant. She has held everything together by sheer will, organizing the household, keeping things running, waiting. When Aragorn arrives with Gandalf and the others, she sees a man who is hard to look away from. Not because of how he looks, though there is a quiet authority in his face, but because of the way he moves, the way he stands, the way he seems to have a full self, even in the middle of all this trouble. She brings him a cup of wine in the old way of welcome, and they speak briefly, and there is a respect between them that is immediate and uncomplicated. She asks what they are riding toward. He tells her, without softening it, what the situation is. She takes it in with still eyes and says nothing that is not necessary. She has the feeling of someone who has been waiting a long time for something real to happen, and finds that now that it has, she is almost entirely ready. Grima does not go quietly, but he does go. Theoden, fully himself again, sits in his hall and looks at the man who spent so long whispering poison into his ear, and there is no anger in the old king's face, just a kind of wearied clarity. He tells Grima that he has a choice. He can stay and face what is coming, riding out with the rest of Rohan when the time comes. Or he can leave. Grima looks around at the faces in the hall. Eomer's face, Eowyn's, Gandalf's, Aragorn's, the guards who now take their orders from a king who can actually give them. He chooses to leave. He rides hard and fast out of Edoras and away across the plains, in the direction of Isengard, in the direction of Saruman. The hall watches him go, without attempting to stop him. In Isengard, surrounded by the ruins of what was once a green and pleasant valley, Saruman stands at the top of his tower and oversees what he has built. It is enormous, the whole circle of Isengard, once a garden, once a place of quiet study, has been converted into something that looks and sounds and smells like a single large machine. The ground is dug up, forges burn underground, and the smoke from them rises through shafts in the earth. The orcs work in their thousands, day and night, because Saruman has bred a new kind, Uruk-hai, larger and stronger than common orcs, less afraid of sunlight, built for war rather than raiding. They carry great curved blades. They move in organized formations. They have been given purpose, which is a dangerous thing to give to something that was already dangerous without it. Saruman stands and watches them march, and counts the things he has built and believes, in the way that people who have made large and terrible plans believe that everything will go as he has calculated. He has sent armies east. He has corrupted kingdoms from within. He has prepared for this for a very long time. His army is ready. His eyes turn toward Rohan. Word comes to Edoras quickly. Scouts on horseback, faces dusty and urgent. Saruman's army is marching. It is very large. It is coming toward them. Theoden hears this in his hall and thinks carefully. He is an old man who has just been returned to himself, in a kingdom that has been weakened by his own long absence of mind, with enemies approaching from 2 directions. Gandalf speaks to him about the danger and about choices. There is a place, a fortress in the mountains, called Helm's Deep, a great stone fortification built into a cleft in the rock, with walls of ancient, deep stone, and a gate that has never been taken. Theoden knows it well. His people have used it in hard times before. He decides. They will go to Helm's Deep, all of them. Not just the soldiers, but the whole people. The women, the children, the old. They will ride for the fortress and hold it until help comes or until the threat passes. It is not a decision born of hope, exactly. It is a decision born of knowing that it is the best thing to do, which is a quieter and steadier feeling than hope in some ways. The leaving is slow and full of the small movements of a whole community in motion. Carts being loaded, animals being herded, children being lifted onto horses or carried in arms. Old people who walk carefully. Dogs who do not understand what is happening. Pots and blankets and things that have been in the same place for so long that moving them requires a kind of small grief. Eowyn moves through all of it, organizing, directing, steady and capable. She is dressed in plain grey, her hair up, her eyes going everywhere at once, making sure everyone is moving and nothing important is left. Aragorn watches her from a little distance and sees someone who is very good at exactly this, and who wishes, with some quiet and controlled part of herself, that she were going towards the battle instead of away from it. The column of Rohirrim, horses and carts and people on foot, thousands of them, moves out through the gates of Edoras and down the long road off the hill, onto the plain, heading south and west. The city behind them is left mostly empty, the gold thatch of its roof bright in the afternoon light. The wind comes off the mountains and moves through the long grass of the plain. The horses walk at a steady pace. and the people walk, and the great quiet of the open land settles over all of it. The journey to Helm's Deep has begun. Far to the east, on the other side of the world from all of this, Gollum leads Frodo and Sam through a land called Ithilien. Ithilien is different from what they have been traveling through. It is green, not the pale, dry green of the plains, but a deeper, lusher green, full of trees and undergrowth, and the smell of growing things, of earth with water in it, of leaves in the sun. There are streams here, and birds, and the air is warm and carries the smell of herbs that grow wild on the hillsides, rosemary and thyme, and things Sam cannot name, but recognizes as good. It is a relief to all of them, even to Gollum, perhaps, though he expresses it only by being slightly less miserable than usual. They travel carefully. Ithilien is wild, but it is not empty. There are soldiers in these lands, loyal to the city of Minas Tirith, far to the west. Not enemy soldiers, but not friends either. Not people who would understand 3 travelers heading toward Mordor and take it calmly. So they keep to the shadows and the cover of the trees, moving quietly, taking the long way around open ground. From the cover of a ridge, Frodo and Sam look down and watch something they have not seen before. A column of men, marching. These are soldiers from the south. Haradrim. People from the hot lands far beyond the reach of anything the hobbits knew back in the Shire. They are dressed in dark robes and light armor, and they carry banners that are unfamiliar. Among them, there is something even stranger. A great, enormous creature that walks like a mountain breathes, slow and heavy and enormous. An Oliphaunt, a creature so big that the soldiers around it seem like insects beside it. Frodo and Sam lie very still in the undergrowth and watch it all pass below them. Neither of them has ever seen anything like it. The ground shakes very slightly with the Oliphaunt's steps. After the column has passed, and the sound of it has faded, and it is quiet again on the ridge, Sam says something. He wonders about those men, not about the Oliphaunt. That is remarkable enough on its own, but about the soldiers, ordinary men, walking somewhere they have been told to walk, carrying weapons they have been told to carry, about to fight a battle whose full shape they probably cannot see from where they stand. He wonders if any of them are afraid. He wonders if they have families back home. He wonders what they think they are fighting for. It is a quiet and gentle kind of wondering, not a philosophical argument, just the honest question of someone watching other people from a distance and remembering that they are people. Frodo listens without saying much. They stay still on the ridge a little while longer, and then Gollum calls to them from somewhere below, and they follow. Gollum knows a pool. He takes them to it through the undergrowth, moving with that low, fluid ease of his, and when they arrive, it is small and clear and very still, fed by a spring somewhere beneath the rock. The trees around it are old, and their branches come out over the water, making a kind of canopy. The light here is filtered and green. Gollum is interested in the pool for practical reasons. There are fish in it, and Gollum loves fish with a deep and simple love that is probably the most uncomplicated thing about him. Frodo and Sam rest at the edge of the pool while Gollum wades in and begins his patient, absorbed fishing. He is good at it. The water does not seem to trouble him. He stands very still and watches, and then moves with a sudden quickness that is almost graceful. Sam watches him and feels the familiar, quiet unease that he always feels when watching Gollum be good at something. He still does not trust him. He does not think he will ever trust him. Frodo lies back against a tree root and closes his eyes for a while. The sound of the water and the birds and the wind in the leaves is as peaceful as anything he has heard in a long time. It is almost nice. And then the arrows come, not at them, but around them. From all directions at once, arrows thudding into the trees and the ground, forming a ring around their resting place with the efficiency of soldiers who know exactly what they are doing. Frodo and Sam are on their feet before they fully understand what is happening. Men step out of the undergrowth, rangers, dressed in green and brown, camouflaged so well that they had been invisible until now. They carry bows and swords and move with the quiet competence of people who have spent a long time in this forest and know every inch of it. At their front is a man who is clearly their captain. He is younger than Aragorn, but there is something in his face that is steady and thoughtful in a way that makes him seem older. His eyes are grey-green and direct, and he studies Frodo and Sam with an expression that is not unfriendly, but is not soft either. It is the expression of someone who is used to needing to make quick decisions about things he does not entirely understand. His name is Faramir. He says they are in Ithilien, which is the domain of Gondor, and that they need to come with him and answer some questions. It is not a request exactly, but it is not rough or cruel either. They are taken to a hidden place in the rock, a cave behind a waterfall, large and dry, where Faramir's rangers have made a kind of base. The sound of the falling water outside is constant and soft, like a curtain between this place and the world. Faramir speaks with Frodo carefully. He is curious about them. Two hobbits, alone, with no visible companions, heading east in a direction that no sensible person heads east in. He wants to understand what they are doing, and he has the patience and the intelligence to ask the right questions. Somewhere in this conversation, he mentions his brother, Boromir, the man who was with the Fellowship at the beginning, who rode out from Gondor to help, who was lost not long ago. He says it quietly, as someone says the name of someone they loved and who is not there anymore. Frodo realizes, with a small shock, that they are connected to this man, that the Fellowship's path and Faramir's grief are the same thing, seen from different angles. Faramir asks about his brother's death. He asks how it happened. He asks with the quiet, measured urgency of someone who needs to know, but who is also bracing for whatever he is about to hear. Frodo tells him, as gently as he can, that Boromir fought bravely, that he was struck down, that he died defending the hobbits. Faramir is still for a moment, and then he nods, and then he continues with the other questions. The conversation goes on. Faramir is too perceptive not to notice that there is something Frodo is holding back, something at the center of all this that he is not saying directly. He presses carefully, not cruelly, but with the persistence of someone who understands that incomplete information can cost lives. Eventually, the ring comes up. Not everything, not all at once, but enough. The nature of the burden Frodo is carrying, the reason for the journey east, the whole shape of it. Faramir takes this in without the reaction that Boromir had. He does not lean towards the ring. He does not start calculating what it could mean for Gondor, for the war, for the position of his city in the long conflict that is gathering. He listens, and he thinks, and he asks a few more questions, and his face is unreadable in the way of people who are thinking very hard and have learned not to let that show. Outside, at the pool, Gollum has been fishing contentedly in the cool water, unaware of what has happened to Frodo and Sam. He has a fish in his hands, and is very pleased with himself. And then Faramir's men come out of the trees. Gollum panics. He splashes and twists and hisses. But there are too many of them, and they are too practiced at this. They take him. He is furious in the way that frightened things are furious. Loud and sharp and temporary. And then he subsides into a low, muttering misery as they bring him back to the cave. He does not like this. He does not like any of it. His eyes go to Frodo, with an expression that is something between appeal and accusation. Faramir's men want to know what to do with the creature. Some of them would like to simply be done with him. Gollum is not exactly easy to sympathize with. But Frodo steps in. He tells Faramir that Gollum is under his protection. He is their guide. Whatever else he is, whatever he has been in his long and troubled life, he is helping them, and they have promised him safe conduct. Frodo's voice is quiet when he says this, but it is steady. There is something in his manner that makes it clear this is not a negotiable point. Faramir looks at Frodo for a moment, and there is something like respect in that look. Not just for the request, but for the fact that this small creature, carrying what he is carrying and going where he is going, still finds it important to keep his word to someone as wretched as Gollum. He agrees. Gollum is not particularly grateful, but he subsides. At some point in all of this, Faramir has a moment alone with the idea of the ring. Not literally. Frodo keeps it close and does not offer it. But Faramir has heard about it now, and he is a man of Gondor, and Gondor is at war, and the idea of something that could change the balance of that war is not a neutral idea to sit with. His brother wanted it, travelled all the way to Rivendell to argue for it, came home carrying it halfway in his heart, and it cost him something in the end. Boromir was a brave man. Boromir was a good man, and the ring bent him anyway. Faramir thinks about this. He says at some point, quietly, almost to himself, that he thinks he would not accept such a gift, even if it were given freely. Not because he does not care about Gondor, but because some gifts are not actually gifts. It is a harder thing to say than it sounds for someone who loves his city the way Faramir loves his. But he says it, and he means it. He lets them go. He gives them food and rest and water, and he sends them on their way with as much of a blessing as a captain of Gondor can give to two hobbits heading into the darkness of Mordor, with nothing but a ring and an untrustworthy guide. He asks Frodo, quietly, at the last moment, is he sure? Not about the plan, not about the path, but in some larger sense. Is he sure about all of it? Frodo looks at him. He is not sure about anything, not exactly, but he knows what he has to do, and knowing that is enough. He says something to that effect. Faramir nods, and they leave. The three of them, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum, walk back into the trees and away from the cave behind the waterfall, back into the quiet green world of Ithilien, and then east, always east, where Mordor waits. Gollum is in a strange mood, not quite hostile, not quite cooperative, moving between the two with every few steps. He is thinking about something, and the thinking shows on his face in the way that feelings always show on faces that have stopped knowing how to hide them. Frodo walks steadily. Sam walks steadily beside him. The ring moves with them, always present, always pressing. Helm's Deep is built into the stone of the White Mountains, a great curving wall called the Deeping Wall, stretching across a narrow gorge in the rock, with a fortress at the back of it called the Hornburg. The wall is ancient and very thick, and at its base it meets the rock of the mountain on either side, so that nothing can go around it. The only way through is through the gate. The people of Rohan arrive in the late afternoon, streaming in through the gorge, horses and carts and people on foot, children and dogs and old men and women with bundles on their backs. Thousands of people filling the space behind the wall, settling into the fortress and its surroundings. Aragorn walks the wall in the fading light, looking out over the narrow valley below. The soldiers of Rohan organize themselves quickly. The wall is manned. The gate is reinforced. Torches are lit and placed at intervals along the battlements. Archers are positioned. Supplies of arrows are carried up. Swords and spears are distributed to anyone who can hold them. It is not a fully equipped or fully rested army. Many of the men who will fight tonight are farmers and herdsmen who have not trained for war in years. Some are boys, barely old enough. Some are old men who hold swords with hands that shake slightly. Aragorn moves among them and says what he can. He is not a man for long speeches, but he is a man for looking people in the eye and saying the true thing. And the true thing here is that they will defend this place for as long as they can, and that they are not alone. He finds a young man, barely 16 or 17, who is visibly frightened in the way young men are frightened when they are trying not to show it. He talks to him for a moment. Not long, just a moment. He says something steady and honest and not unkind. The young man straightens up a little. Aragorn moves on. He finds Legolas and Gimli on the battlements, and the three of them stand at the wall's edge in the cold air of the mountain night and look out at the dark valley below. The darkness is thick enough that you cannot see to the far end of it. They speak quietly about the odds, and about what is coming, and about the things that are worth defending. It is a quiet conversation, the kind that happens between people who trust each other enough to say the real things. And then, unexpectedly, in the last hour, before the enemy arrives, a sound from below the gate. Marching. But not the sound of enemies. A different sound, lighter and more ordered. The gate opens, and through it comes a column of elves, tall and silver-armored, carrying bows and long spears, their faces composed and their steps absolutely even. They have come from the elven realm of Lorien, sent south by their lord at Gandalf's request, to stand with the men of Rohan in this hour. Aragorn goes to meet their captain. They speak in the elven tongue, and there is warmth in it. The warmth of people who share a history of long years. The elves take their positions on the wall with the quiet efficiency of soldiers who have fought in many battles over many centuries. The men of Rohan who stand nearby look at them and feel something shift in the air. Not exactly relief, but something stronger than despair. Down in the darkness below the valley, 10,000 Uruk-hai are moving. They carry torches. The torches fill the valley, and from the wall of Helm's Deep, the men and elves above can see the light of them before they can hear the steps. A river of orange and red, moving steadily forward through the dark, filling the space between the mountain walls from side to side. Then the sound reaches them, the sound of 10,000 armored soldiers marching in step. A low, rolling, rhythmic sound that fills the night and the mountains alike and seems to come from everywhere. The defenders on the wall stand very still and watch it come. Some of them have never seen anything like this. Some of them feel the particular quality of fear that comes when the thing you feared turns out to be larger than you imagined. But they hold the wall. They hold their bows. They hold. The Uruk-hai fill the valley below the deeping wall and stop moving. 10,000 of them, arrayed in a dark mass that stretches back further than the torchlight shows, shields forward, weapons ready, the low sound of their presence. breathing and equipment, and the particular stillness of something waiting to move. They are waiting for a signal. Above them, on the wall, Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli and Theoden and the elven captain all stand in the torchlight and watch them. The valley is very quiet for a moment. An old soldier on the wall, nervous or cold, or simply tired, releases his bowstring. The arrow goes down into the dark, and it does not matter whether it hits anything, because the moment it does, everything changes. The waiting, which was the last thing between this hour and what comes next, is over. Below, the Uruk-hai raise their shields and lower their weapons, and the sound they make is not a shout, but something lower and more continuous, the sound of 10,000 voices and 10,000 steps beginning to move at once. Above, the archers draw and fire. The battle begins. Rain comes. Not a gentle rain, but a heavy, cold mountain rain that comes sideways in gusts, making the torches gutter and the battlements slick and the archers' bowstrings damp. The Uruk-hai come forward in waves, raising ladders against the wall, climbing with the relentless, tireless energy of things bred for this purpose. The defenders push the ladders down. The orcs put them up again. Arrows come down from the wall and orcs fall, and the ones behind them step over them and keep coming. Legolas fires with the precise calm of someone who has been doing this for a very long time and does not need to think about each step, only the result. Gimli fights at close quarters when the orcs reach the top of the ladders, meeting each with the satisfaction of someone who genuinely prefers close work. Aragorn moves between them, sword in hand, steady and focused. The rain does not stop. The orcs do not stop. At the base of the great deeping wall, in a drainage culvert, a small pipe that runs through the wall to let water drain away. 2 Uruk-hai are running. Each one carries a small, smoking sphere. They reach the culvert. They push the spheres inside. They run back. The explosion tears through the wall from the inside. Not the whole wall, but a section. A chunk of ancient stone blasted outward and upward and downward, all at once. A burst of fire and force that knocks men off the battlements above it and leaves a gap in the wall wide enough for orcs to pour through. And they do. Through the gap and over the remaining walls, the Uruk-hai stream into the fortification. The careful, ordered defense of the wall breaks down into something more chaotic. A running fight through passages and around corners, small groups of defenders holding individual points against larger groups of attackers. The sound of it fills the whole fortress. Metal on metal, stone, shouting, the heavy rhythm of running feet. Theoden watches from the gate of the Hornburg, the innermost fortress. He is a soldier and a king, and he knows what he is watching with a calm precision. He watches the outer defenses fall and calculates the time they have left and what is still possible. Aragorn and Gimli end up together in one of the corridors where the orcs have broken through. They fight back to back for a while. Aragorn with his long sword, Gimli with his axes. And they are very good at it, each one covering the angles the other cannot reach, working with the ease of people who have learned each other's rhythms over weeks of travel. Between passes, they exchange a few words. Not many. Just enough to stay connected to each other in the chaos. It is the kind of conversation that only makes sense in the middle of a battle, but which both of them will remember afterward. The outer areas are lost. Aragorn gives the call to fall back, and the defenders move in good order, through the passages and up to the Hornburg itself, pulling in behind them, taking what wounded they can carry, closing the doors of the inner fortress. The gate of the Hornburg, which is different from the wall gate, is older and heavier and set in rock on both sides. They hold it closed. Outside, the Uruk-hai reach it and begin working on it. Battering rams, axes, the organized, patient violence of an army that has not run out of numbers. Inside, the defenders rest their backs against the walls and breathe and look at each other in the torchlight. Some of them are wounded. All of them are tired. The night is still going. Theoden stands in the center of the Hornburg and says very little. He is thinking. He is very old, and he has seen hard things before, and he knows what comes next. He says it quietly but clearly, in the way of someone who has made a decision and is finished with the making of it. They will not wait for the gate to break. They will not sit in the Hornburg and hold it until they are overcome. They will ride out. They will open the doors and mount their horses and ride directly into the Uruk-hai army. Every man who can still sit in a saddle. Not because they are certain they will win, because it is the thing to do with the time they have, and because it is a finer thing than waiting. He says that if this is to be their last hour, they will spend it the way riders of Rohan spend their hours, in the saddle, riding forward. The men listen, and there is something that moves through them when he says it. Not happiness exactly, but the resolve that comes when a hard question is answered, and the answer turns out to be simpler than you feared. They prepare quickly. Horses are brought. Weapons are checked. The men mount up in the narrow space inside the Hornburg, and Theoden takes his place at the front, in full armor, on his grey horse. Aragorn rides up beside him. Their eyes meet, briefly, and there is a steadiness in both of them. Aragorn says something to the men. Short, direct, in the old tongue of Rohan, a language he knows as well as his own. He says that today they will remind the world that the men of Rohan do not break. The gates of the Hornburg open. The light that comes in is pale and golden. The very first light of morning, coming from the east, coming over the ridge of the mountains, and into the valley where the battle has been going all night. It falls on the Uruk-hai below, who have not been expecting this light, who have been fighting in the dark as they are bred to do, and who find the sudden soft gold of it disorienting. The riders of Rohan charge out into it. On the ridge above the valley, at precisely this moment, Gandalf appears. He is on Shadowfax, white against the morning sky, and behind him, spreading out across the ridge in a long line, filling it from edge to edge, are the riders of Rohan that Eomer commands. Thousands of horses and thousands of men, in full battle order, arriving exactly at the moment when the need for them is greatest. Gandalf raises his staff, and it catches the morning light and blazes with it, bright and clean and overwhelming, pouring down the hillside into the eyes of the Uruk-hai below. They come down the hillside at a full gallop. Thousands of horses, and the sound they make on the rocky ground is enormous. A rolling, thundering sound that fills the whole valley and comes off the mountains on both sides and becomes something that you feel as much as hear. The riders of Rohan come down with their spears leveled and their horses flying, and the morning light streaming gold behind them. The Uruk-hai army, caught between this charge from above and Theoden's charge from the fortress, is squeezed. There is nowhere to go. The ones at the front press back and find only more of their own kind behind them. The battle does not end quickly. Battles rarely do, even after they are decided. But it is decided now. The Uruk-hai fight hard because they are bred to fight and do not easily stop. But the combination of the charge from the fortress and the charge from the hill and the light from Gandalf's staff is too much. They break. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Groups of them starting to fall back and finding that the forest at the edge of the valley does not offer the retreat they expected. The forest at the edge of the valley has changed. The trees in it, which were ordinary trees this morning, are no longer ordinary. They are awake and moving, and full of a dark, rooted fury that nothing that lives by the axe or the fire wants to meet. The Uruk-hai who run into the forest do not come out. Saruman's army is defeated. While the Battle of Helm's Deep was being fought through the night, Fangorn Forest was also moving. Not walking. Trees do not walk, generally. But Ents do, and the Ents of Fangorn, having held their long council and come to their long and patient decision, are on the march. They move through the night with the inexorable pace of things that do not hurry, but do not stop. The ground shakes slightly with each step. The forest moves with them, or seems to. The trees around Fangorn stirring and reaching, ancient things in motion for the first time in very long years. Their destination is Isengard. Saruman's stronghold is vast and fortified, and full of orcs and fire. But the Ents are older than Saruman. They are older than his walls, and they are very, very angry in a way that has been building for a very long time. Treebeard reaches the outer circle of Isengard in the dark hours and pauses there, looking at what Saruman has done to the land he knew. The valley that was Isengard was green once. Treebeard remembers it. He remembers the trees that grew here, the ones Saruman's industry has burned for fuel and cut down for timber. He knows some of them by name, the way you know old friends. What Saruman has built here is impressive, in its way, but it is not as old as Treebeard is. It is not as deep, and it does not know how to fight the kind of thing that is coming through its outer walls right now. The Ents walk into Isengard. They tear at the forges and the walls with their enormous hands, pulling stone from stone, dismantling the machinery of war the way a storm dismantles a structure that was not built to last. Orcs try to fight back and find that there is not much they can do to stop something that is too large and too old and too certain. Treebeard, at some point in the long work of taking Isengard apart, turns his attention to the river. The Eisen runs past Isengard, dammed up and controlled, its water diverted to run the machinery underground. Treebeard reaches the dam and breaks it. The water comes through not in a dramatic surge, but in a steady, irresistible flood, the river reclaiming the course that was taken from it, filling the pits and shafts and tunnels of Saruman's underground works. The fires go out. The machines stop. The steam rises enormous and white in the night air. Isengard floods slowly and completely until the whole valley is a lake, and the tower of Orthanc stands alone in the middle of it, dry and dark at its top, where Saruman is standing and watching everything he built disappear. Merry and Pippin sit on the rubble of Isengard's outer wall in the early morning, eating. They have found the storerooms, the parts that were above water, and they have found things that delight them in the way that food always delights hobbits after a long night of large events. Pippin has something he is clearly happy about. Merry is calm and cheerful in the way he gets when things have gone better than expected. They are perfectly comfortable on their pile of rubble in the middle of what was, until recently, one of the most formidable strongholds in the Western world. When Gandalf and Aragorn and the others arrive at the outer wall, following the road to Isengard, they find the two hobbits there. Merry offers them a welcome that is very slightly silly and entirely sincere, gesturing at the ruins around him as though presenting something he personally arranged for their arrival. It is a moment of real warmth among friends in the aftermath of hard things, brief but genuine. Far away, on the road to Mordor, night has come down over the rocks and the dark country, and Frodo cannot sleep. He lies still in the dark and listens. Nearby, not far, he can hear Gollum speaking, quietly, and not to Frodo or Sam, to himself. Or rather, to the other self that lives inside Gollum, the one that has been there since before the ring, the faint remnant of the hobbit creature he once was. Gollum calls him Sméagol. In the dark, in the quiet, Frodo hears them. Two voices from one mouth, arguing in whispers. The Sméagol part is uncertain, sometimes gentle, sometimes sad. It has been changed by the ring, but not entirely destroyed. It still knows, somewhere in its small, damaged way, what kindness is. The other part, the Gollum part, the one shaped entirely by years of carrying the ring alone, is different, harder, more calculating. That voice speaks about the ring-bearer, about what Gollum wants, and what stands between him and getting it. What Frodo hears in the dark is not a single conversation, but a debate, quiet and fierce in its way, between the two halves of something broken. Gollum is not sure yet what he will do, but the ring's pull on him has never faded. All these days of guiding Frodo toward Mordor have been days of walking beside the ring, days of feeling its presence just out of reach, days of swallowing the want of it over and over. And there is a place they are heading toward. The path Gollum knows. He has not told Frodo everything about that path, about what waits at the top of the secret stair. The voices in the dark argue. The Sméagol voice says the ring-bearer was kind, that he called Gollum a friend, that he kept his promise. The Gollum voice says it does not matter. Frodo lies in the dark and listens. He does not know everything he is hearing, but he hears enough to know that it is important. He closes his eyes and thinks about it for a long time before sleep finally comes. Morning comes slowly to the dark lands east of Ithilien. The sky lightens in a way that is less bright than pale, the sun rising somewhere behind thick air, giving enough light to walk by, but not enough to feel warm. The mountains of Mordor are ahead, still, always ahead, enormous and patient, in the way that obstacles are always more patient than the people trying to get past them. Frodo gets up. Sam is already awake. Of course he is. He has some water and a small portion of the Lember's bread they have been carefully rationing. The elven way bread given to them at the start of the journey, dense and sustaining in a way that ordinary food is not. He hands Frodo his share without ceremony, because that is simply what Sam does. They eat in silence for a moment, the three of them, in that particular early morning quiet, when the world has not yet fully started, and everything feels possible in a tired way. Gollum is already crouching ahead of them, looking eastward with those pale eyes, patient and waiting. Whatever argument happened in the dark, he has packed it away for now, into wherever he keeps things he does not want seen. His face is its usual difficult-to-read arrangement of hunger and wariness and something older. He begins to move. Frodo and Sam follow. And behind all three of them, behind the rocky hills and the dark marshes and the long miles they have already walked, the world they came from recedes a little further. The Shire is very far away. The comfortable, warm evenings of hobbit holes, the smell of gardens in the evening, the particular quiet of a life where the biggest danger is missing second breakfast. All of that is far away, and growing further. But Frodo has the ring, still, and the ring has a destination, and the destination has not changed. The road goes east, and east they go. The end, if you are still awake, try our other movie story videos. Subscribe if you liked the video. Thanks.